In the last video, I showed you how to create variables using the let keyword, as well as how to redefine existing variables to have new values, and showed you all of the intricacies of variables. In this video, I want to talk about types, and very specifically, I want to talk about the number type, because something important to understand about every single variable in JavaScript is that they have a type associated with them. So when you set a variable, for example, if we say let a equal 1, we're setting a equal to the number 1. And we're giving this variable here, a, the type of number because it's storing a number type as its value. So in this video, I'm going to talk about everything you need to know about numbers. So if we have this variable here, in order to figure out what type of variable is, we can just come in here with the console.log, and we can use the keyword type of, all one word, all lowercase, put a space after it, and then just put the variable you want to check. What this is going to do is it's going to give us the actual name of the type that we're using. In our case, this should give us the type of number. And in our case, if you still have this index.html file open, we're just going to be running this in a script tag here. That way we can open it up with live server. And that way, if we just come over here, here's our open browser. If we right click, inspect, go to the console, you can see right here, we have everything we need. So let me just get the browser moved over to the side, get this moved over to the other side. And there we go. So now whenever we save our file, you'll see that it's going to update over here with everything inside this file. So you can see we get number being printed out because this variable a is of type number. Now in JavaScript, numbers are a bit different than a lot of other programming languages if you're used to other programming languages, because in other languages, numbers like 1 or 2 or 3, these whole numbers, they all represent an integer. An integer essentially stands for a whole number, something that doesn't have any decimals. While if you had a number, for example, like 2.3, this is like a floating point number, essentially a decimal number, because it has, numbers that come after the decimal point. A lot of times you'll hear this called a floating point number, maybe a double. In our case, we're going to refer to this as a float, and a number that doesn't have any decimal points, and for example, 2 here, is going to be referred to as an integer. But in JavaScript, they're all the type number. So let's come with b here. We'll actually just call this float. That's going to be equal to 2.3. And we're going to rename a to int, which is short for integer. We're going to check the type of int here, and we're going to check the type of our float variable. And you'll notice that both of these print out number, even though one of them is a decimal point, floating point number, and the other one is a whole number integer, they're both of the type number. Something really nice about numbers that we can do in JavaScript is we can do arithmetic on our numbers. For example, if we wanted to add int and float together, we could just come in here and say float plus int. So you just say the name of the variable that you want, put the plus symbol in here and the other name of the variable you want to add together. And now you can see 4.3 is printed out because 2 plus 2.3 is obviously 4.3. We could even change this to say like 1 plus int, and that's going to do 1 plus the value of integer, and we're going to get 3. 1 plus 2 is 3. We can do other things, for example, subtraction, 1 minus 2, we're going to get negative 1. And we can again take this further. For example, we could do multiplication. We'll do 2 times 2. That's going to give us 4 over here. And if we did, for example, 1 divided by that integer, which is 2, we're going to get 0.5 or a half. And that's really nice. We can do, integer division. We're going to get a floating point number. And that's just because under the hood, JavaScript treats every type of number exactly the same. So we can do all of our different arithmetic, multiplication, division, subtraction, all of that with our numbers here. And we can even change this together using just order of operations. So for example, here, we're just going to get rid of these variables and just say console.log. And we're going to say 1 plus 2 times 3. And if we save this, we're going to get 7 printed out. And this is because even though JavaScript works top to bottom, left to right, it follows your normal order of operations when it comes to math. So with normal order of operations, multiplication always occurs first. So we do 2 times 3, and then we add 1 on later. If we wanted 1 plus 2 to come first, we could just wrap this inside of parentheses, just like you would do with normal math, and now these parentheses are going to take place before the multiplication, and if we save, we get 9, because 1 plus 2 is 3, times 3 gives us 9. So now with all of this knowledge, I want you to challenge yourself and create 3 separate variables. The first variable is going to be called a, we'll set it equal to 1. The second variable is going to be b, we're going to set that equal to 2, and the third variable c is going to be set to equal to 3. Then what I want you to do is log out the results of doing a plus b first, and then dividing by c. So I'm just going to give you a few seconds, pause the video here, and then I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, hopefully you took the chance to actually do this, and here we go. First thing, like I said, we want to create a variable a, set it equal to 1. We're going to create a variable b, set it here equal to 2, and a variable c, which we set equal to 3. Then, like I said, we want to log out a plus b first, so a plus b, and then we're going to divide by c, which is 3. But we want this a plus b to go first, so we're going to wrap this inside of parentheses. So this should give us 1 plus 2, which is 3, divided by 3, which is 1. And when we save, you see we get 1 printed out, so we know that this successfully worked. Now the last thing I want to talk about with JavaScript is how floating point numbers work when you do the math with them, because these decimal numbers work slightly differently in a computer as opposed to how they would work on, when you do normal math. So let's just say here we have, 1.1, and this will just be 2.2. We don't need C here. And let's just do A plus B. A plus B. If we save this, you're going to notice something really interesting. We get 3.400000004. You would expect the result of this to be 3.4 because 1.2 plus 2.2 is 3.4. But computers aren't very accurate when they add together numbers with decimals on them, and sometimes, not always, but sometimes, you're going to get these weird rounding errors. Because as you can see, this is almost 3.4. This is 3.4 and then, 10, 12 zeros and then another 4. So it's almost accurate, but since the computers can't quite do perfect mathematics down to, decimal points, they sometimes have rounding errors. So it's really important to note that if you're doing, 1.2 plus 2.2 and you're expecting the result to be 3.4, you may have, the number be slightly off what you expect here. As you can see, it's slightly off. This doesn't always happen though. Let's just say if we did multiplication here and we save, you notice that now 2.64 is the correct answer and there's no weird rounding errors. So it's something that may happen sometimes, it may not happen. Usually it won't happen, but it is something you have to be aware of that it may happen. So when you're dealing with floating point numbers and you're trying to do math on these decimal numbers, you have to be aware that sometimes your answer may be slightly higher or slightly lower due to these weird rounding issues. In the next video, I'm going to talk about the string type in JavaScript, which is how you do everything related to text. I can't wait to see you in that video.